Someone is here.
Thomas Riley's fingers trembled as he tore open the manila envelope under the flickering streetlight on Lenox Avenue. The paper inside felt heavier than it should. Red ink. An address written in block letters. 127 West 132nd Street, Apartment 4. B. Below it, 5 words that made his throat tighten. Midnight, tomorrow. Come alone. Snake read it twice. His heart pounded against his ribs so hard he thought it might crack through. This was real. $50,000. Enough to erase everything. The debt, the fear, the last 9 years of his life. He folded the paper with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, slid it into his inside jacket pocket and started walking north. The March wind cut through his coat. His shoes clicked against wet pavement. Somewhere behind him, a car door closed. Snake didn't look back. He had 24 hours to prepare for the biggest payday of his life. What he didn't have was 24 hours to live. To understand why Thomas Riley was a dead man the second he touched that envelope, you need to know what happens when someone tries to sell out the most dangerous man in Harlem. Not the most violent, the most dangerous. There's a difference. Violence is easy. Any fool with a gun can be violent. Bumpy Johnson never needed to be violent because he understood something most men never learn. Information is power. Patience is control. And the best way to destroy an enemy isn't to kill them. It's to let them destroy themselves. But nobody knew that on March 14th, 1967. Not the 2 men who hired Snake to betray Bumpy. Not the Genovese family captains who approved the $50,000 payment. Not even Snake himself as he walked home that night, thinking about bus tickets to Atlanta and a fresh start somewhere the past couldn't find him. The only people who knew the truth were sitting in a brownstone on Edgecombe Avenue. And they weren't talking. 6 months earlier, September 9th, 1966, 2:15 in the afternoon, Ellsworth Raymond Johnson sat in Marcus Garvey Park playing chess against a 13-year-old kid named David who thought he was about to win. The board told a different story. David had Bumpy's queen. He had both rooks. He was up by 12 points of material. But Bumpy's king sat safely behind 3 pawns, while David's king stood exposed on an open file with nowhere to run. Bumpy moved his knight. Check. David blocked with his queen. Bumpy moved his bishop. Check. David moved his king. Bumpy brought his remaining rook across the board. Checkmate. The kid stared at the board in silence. After a long moment, he looked up. How did you do that? You had nothing left. Bumpy smiled, leaned back against the bench. Let me tell you something about chess, young brother. The game isn't about what pieces you have. It's about what pieces your opponent thinks you have. It's about making them believe they're winning right up until the moment they lose. David nodded slowly. Can I ask you something, Mr. Johnson? Bumpy gestured for him to continue. Why do you play chess in the park every day when you could be doing anything else? Bumpy looked out at the Harlem skyline, the buildings his parents never thought a black man could own, the streets his grandmother said would kill him before he turned 20. He turned back to David. Because chess teaches you the most important lesson in life. Everyone thinks they're a player, but most people are just pieces on someone else's board. That conversation happened 187 days before Snake opened the envelope, but it explained everything that was about to happen. Because Thomas Snake Riley wasn't a player, he was a piece, and he'd been on Bumpy's board since February 24th, 1967, the day 2 white men in expensive suits approached him outside Red Rooster at 4:20 in the afternoon. Snake was lighting a cigarette when they walked up. The taller one did the talking. His voice was smooth, educated. He said his name was Vincent. He said he represented people who appreciated loyalty and paid well for information. He said these people had a simple question. Where does Bumpy Johnson sleep? Snake took a drag, blew smoke, told them to get lost. Vincent smiled, reached into his jacket, pulled out a photograph. It showed Snake at a poker table in Brooklyn 3 weeks earlier. The night he lost $12,000, he didn't have to accrue that didn't forgive debts. How much time they give you? Vincent asked. Snake's cigarette burned down to his fingers. He didn't notice. Vincent answered his own question. I'm guessing 30 days, maybe 40 if you're lucky. Today's February 24th, that puts your deadline somewhere around April 1st. Am I close? Snake dropped the cigarette, stepped on it. His jaw clenched. Vincent pulled out a business card, blank except for a phone number written in pen. We're offering $50,000 for reliable information about Bumpy Johnson's movements, locations, patterns, times. You give us what we need. You walk away with enough to pay off Brooklyn and start fresh somewhere warm. You don't, well. Vincent shrugged. April 1st is coming whether you're ready or not. He handed Snake the card. Think about it. Call this number when you decide. The two men walked away, got into a black Cadillac, drove north. Snake stood there for 3 minutes not moving. Then he put the card in his wallet and went back inside. What Snake didn't see was the man sitting in a Plymouth across the street. Julius Junie Bird, 41 years old, Bumpy Johnson's childhood friend since they were both 14 in Charleston, South Carolina. Junie had no arrest record, no known address, no social security number on file anywhere. He existed in the spaces between official records, and his only job for the last 27 years was watching people for Bumpy. Junie watched Vincent and his partner approach Snake, watched them talk for 7 minutes, watched them drive away. He wrote down the Cadillac's license plate number, New Jersey registration, Echo Tango 7492. At 4:45, Junie made a phone call from a payphone on 123rd Street. Bumpy answered on the second ring. Junie gave him the plate number. Bumpy said 3 words. "I'll handle it." The line went dead. By 6:30 that evening, Bumpy knew everything. The Cadillac belonged to a shell company in Newark, registered to Anthony Fat Tony Salerno's cousin. Vincent's real name was Vincent Allo, former soldier in the Genovese family, now a fixer. The kind of man families used when they needed something done quietly. The second man was Michael Rizzi, enforcer. Both worked directly for Fat Tony, which meant the Genovese family was making a move on Harlem. They were building a case, looking for patterns, trying to find the gaps in Bumpy's armor, and they'd found their inside man. Bumpy hung up the phone, poured himself 2 fingers of bourbon, sat in his study for an hour staring at the chessboard on his desk. Then he started making calls. March 1st, 1967, 9 in the morning. 5 people sat in Bumpy Johnson's brownstone on Edgecombe Avenue, his wife Mamie, Junie Bird, his lawyer Archibald Robbins, a real estate developer named Raymond Lucas, and Bumpy. Mamie poured coffee while Bumpy laid out what was about to happen. Snake Riley was going to betray him. The Genovese family was going to pay him $50,000 for information, and Bumpy was going to let them. Mamie stopped pouring. "Set the pot down." "You're going to let them?" Bumpy nodded. "Sometimes the best way to catch a rat is to let it think it found the cheese." He turned to Raymond. "You own the building at 127 West 132nd Street. What apartment has been vacant the longest?" Raymond didn't hesitate. 4B. Been empty since the tenant moved out in January. No new applications yet. Bumpy asked if the apartment could stay empty for 6 more weeks. Raymond said it already was. Bumpy turned to Junie. "Starting today, I need you on Snake 24 hours. I need to know every conversation, every phone call, every person he talks to." Junie pulled out a small notebook, already on it. Been tailing him since February 24th. He's made 4 calls to the number Vincent gave him. Twice he hung up before anyone answered. Twice he talked for less than 30 seconds. Last call was yesterday. He said he needed more time to think. Bumpy turned to Archie. "I need you to prepare bail money. 50,000 cash. Keep it liquid. Keep it ready." Archie frowned. "Bail for who?" "For whoever the Genovese family sends to apartment 4B at midnight on March 15th. There was a long silence. Mamie spoke first. "What are you planning, Ellsworth?" Bumpy looked at his wife. Her eyes held the same steel that made him fall in love with her 19 years earlier. "I'm planning to teach New York a lesson. Nobody takes Harlem from me. Not now, not ever. March 13th, 1967, 8:12 at night. Snake Riley sat in his apartment on 140th Street, counting the days until April 1st. 17. He had 17 days before the Brooklyn crew came looking for $12,000 he didn't have. His hands shook as he stared at the blank card Vincent gave him, the phone number written in pen. He'd been staring at it for 3 weeks. Every night the same question. Do I make the call? Every morning the same answer. Not yet. But time was running out. And Snake knew what happened to men who couldn't pay their debts. He'd seen it. 2 years ago, a numbers runner named Eddie who owed $8,000 to a crew in the Bronx. They found Eddie in an alley off Lenox Avenue with both his kneecaps shattered. Eddie never walked right again, never worked again. Spent the rest of his life begging for change outside the Apollo Theater. Snake wasn't going to be Eddie. At 8:15, he picked up his phone, dialed the number. It rang 3 times. A voice answered, smooth, professional. Vincent. Snake took a breath. It's me, I'm ready to talk. Vincent didn't sound surprised. Good. What do you have? Snake told him everything. Bumpy's Tuesday coffee at Wells' restaurant, his Thursday chess games, his Saturday dinners with Mamie, the brownstone on Edgecombe, the patterns, the times, the details. Vincent listened without interrupting. When Snake finished, there was silence. Then Vincent spoke. This is good, very good. Give me 24 hours to verify. If it checks out, you'll get your payment instructions tomorrow night. Same phone booth where we left your first contact, 11:30. Don't be late. The line went dead. Snake set the phone down, his heart hammered. It was done. No going back now. What Snake didn't know was that Junie Bird was sitting in a basement apartment 2 buildings away, listening to every word through a wiretap he'd installed 4 days earlier. March 14th, 9 in the morning. Bumpy Johnson sat in his study reading the transcript Junie brought him. Every word of Snake's phone call typed on 3 pages of paper. Bumpy read it twice, set it down, looked at Junie. Is he alone? Junie nodded. No backup, no second thoughts. He thinks he's getting $50,000 and a new life. Bumpy poured 2 glasses of bourbon, handed one to Junie, 2 old friends. They drank. Then Bumpy pulled out a piece of paper and a red pen. He wrote in block letters, your payment, $50,000 cash. Midnight tomorrow, come alone. Below it he wrote an address, 127 West 132nd Street, apartment 4B. He folded it, slid it into a manila envelope, sealed it, handed it to Junie. Leave this at the phone booth on Lenox at 11:42 tonight. Make sure nobody sees you. Junie took the envelope. What about the Italians? Bumpy leaned back in his chair. They'll send someone to verify Snake's information first, probably tonight or tomorrow morning. They'll watch Wells' restaurant. They'll watch the brownstone. They'll see exactly what Snake told them they'd see, because I'm not changing anything. And when they're satisfied, they'll give Snake his instructions. Junie smiled slowly, and those instructions will tell him to go to an empty apartment at midnight. Bumpy nodded. Where we'll be waiting. Junie left at 9:30. The envelope was delivered at 11:42 exactly. Snake picked it up at 11:43, and the clock started ticking on the last 24 hours of his life. March 15th, 1967, 7 in the morning. Vincent Allo and Michael Rizzi sat in a diner on 123rd Street, drinking coffee and watching Wells' restaurant across the street. They'd been there since 1:45 in the morning. At 1:58, a black Cadillac pulled up. Bumpy Johnson stepped out. He walked into Wells' restaurant alone, sat at his usual table, ordered coffee, a chicken leg and hominy grits. He ate slowly, read a newspaper, left at 2:36. Got back in the Cadillac and drove home. Vincent made notes in a small book. Everything matched what Snake said. The time, the location, the routine. Michael lit a cigarette. The rat's information is solid. Vincent nodded. Call Fat Tony. Tell him we're green for tomorrow night. By 8 in the morning, Anthony Salerno knew Snake's information was reliable. By 9, he approved the $50,000 payment. By 10, Vincent left the manila envelope at the phone booth on Lenox Avenue. And by 11:43 that night, Snake Riley was reading instructions to his own execution. The thing about betrayal is it always feels justified. Snake Riley didn't think he was selling out a friend. He thought he was saving his own life. The Brooklyn crew would kill him if he didn't pay. The 50,000 would solve everything. He'd give the Italians what they wanted, take the money, disappear, nobody would get hurt. Bumpy had 1,000 soldiers. He'd be fine. Snake told himself this story so many times, he started believing it. But what Snake didn't understand, what men like him never understand, is that betrayal isn't about the information you sell. It's about the trust you break, and broken trust has consequences. Always. March 15th, 11:15 at night. Snake stood in his bathroom staring at his reflection. He'd showered, shaved, put on his best suit, navy blue with thin white pinstripes, his lucky suit, the one he wore when he won $2,000 on a horse named Midnight Dancer back in 1963. He straightened his tie, checked his watch. 11:17. He had 43 minutes to get to 127 West 132nd Street. The envelope sat on his kitchen table. He picked it up. Read the address one more time. Apartment 4B, he folded it, put it in his jacket pocket, grabbed his coat, locked his apartment door, walked down 4 flights of stairs to the street. The night air hit his face like ice water. Clear sky, half moon, temperature around 38 degrees. Snake started walking west. His breath came out in small clouds. His footsteps echoed off brownstone walls. At 11:29, he passed a Plymouth parked on the corner. A man sat in the driver's seat reading a newspaper. Snake didn't look twice. The man was Junie Bird, and he'd been following Snake since he left his building. 11:38. Snake reached 127 West 132nd Street, 5-story walk-up. Red brick. Fire escape on the front, lights on in a few windows. He checked the address again. This was it. He opened the front door. The lobby smelled like old wood and radiator steam. Mailboxes on the left wall. Stairs on the right. He started climbing. First floor, second floor. His heart pounded harder with each step. Third floor, fourth floor. Apartment 4B was at the end of the hallway. Dark green door. Brass number 4. Brass letter B. No light under the door. No sound from inside. Snake stopped 3 feet away, checked his watch. 11:46. 14 minutes early. He decided to wait. Leaned against the wall opposite the door, tried to slow his breathing. The hallway was silent. Somewhere below a radiator hissed. A dog barked. Then silence again. At 11:58, Snake heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Heavy, deliberate. 2 sets. His throat went dry. This was it. The money, the escape, the new life. The footsteps reached the 4th floor, turned down the hallway. 2 men, both white, both wearing long coats. The first man was tall, silver hair, calm eyes. He looked at Snake. "You, Thomas Riley?" Snake nodded. The man gestured to the door. "Open it." Snake's hand shook as he reached for the doorknob. It turned. The door swung open. Inside, the apartment was pitch black. The tall man pulled out a flashlight, pointed it inside. Empty room. Bare walls. Wooden floor. Nothing else. The man turned to Snake. "Step inside." Snake hesitated. "Where's the money?" The man smiled. "It's inside. Go get it." Snake walked through the door. The flashlight beam followed him. He took 3 steps into the empty room. Stopped. Turned around. "Where?" The tall man's smile disappeared. "Right there." He pointed the flashlight at the floor. Snake looked down. At his feet, written in white chalk on the wooden floor, were 4 words. Woodlawn Cemetery. Plot 723. Snake's blood turned to ice. He looked up. Both men were gone. The door was closed. And somewhere in the darkness behind him, someone spoke. "Hello, Snake?" The voice was calm, familiar. Bumpy Johnson stepped into the flashlight beam. "Hello, Snake." The thing about stories like this is they force us to ask uncomfortable questions. Not about right and wrong. Those answers are easy. Betrayal is wrong. Crime is wrong. The uncomfortable questions are about desperation. Snake Riley wasn't evil. He was drowning. And when you're drowning, you grab whatever rope appears, even if you don't know who's holding the other end. We can judge him. We probably should. But judgment doesn't answer the real question. What would you do if someone handed you an envelope that could save your life? The other side is just as complicated. Bumpy Johnson wasn't a hero. He controlled illegal gambling. He profited from desperation. But he understood something most people never learn. Trust is the only currency that matters. Money comes and goes, power shifts. But once trust is broken, it's gone forever. Bumpy didn't punish Snake for the information he sold. He punished him for thinking 9 years of loyalty meant nothing compared to $50,000 and a bus ticket. What makes this story stay with you is the middle. Those 3 weeks when Snake thought he was making a smart play. When he convinced himself that betraying one man to save himself wasn't really betrayal, just survival, just business. That should make us uncomfortable. Because most of us will face a moment when we have to choose between our integrity and our survival. And in that moment, the distance between Snake Riley and whoever you are becomes smaller than you'd like to admit. This isn't a story about crime. It's about choices, about how we rationalize what we do when we're scared. Bumpy understood that desperate men don't think clearly. They think short-term. They grab the nearest exit without checking where it leads. Snake walked into that apartment of his own free will. Nobody forced him. He made a choice, and choices have consequences. Always. Real power isn't about violence, it's about information, about knowing what your opponent will do before they do it. Bumpy could have stopped Snake on day one, but that wouldn't have sent the message. The message wasn't for Snake. It was for everyone watching. You can't outthink me, you can't outplay me, and if you try, I'll let you beat yourself. There are no heroes here, just people making choices and living with results. That's the truth most stories avoid. But it's the truth that makes this one matter.